Today, we will be discussing about the Naxalite movement in Telangana. The topic is rise and spread of Naxalite movement, the beginnings. In the first part means we will be having two parts, two basic sections. One is the beginnings and the other one is how the Naxalite movement is spread and how it is affecting the whole society, how it is interacting with the society and what are the consequences, what are the results, what changes the Naxalite movement has made in Telangana social structure. So, before that, we have to understand one broad general understanding that struggle is always waged by the people. In Indian history, we have different sort of struggles. Permanently, everlasting, ever-waging struggles are tribal struggles. We have a continuous history of tribal struggles from 1700s against the state, against the people who were usurping or curbing the rights of the tribals. So from 1700s means 18th century, you can see relentless fights of the tribals against the state. This is one sort of struggles. Their struggle is not based on any ideology, but it is for their rights. For the rights on the forest, rights of livelihood, against alienation by the state, outsiders. This is tribal struggles. Second one is the peasant struggles. Peasant struggles are the struggles which are against a particular economic system, that is the feudal system or the revenue system or the state, whatever is coming in the way of the peasantry, whatever system is forcing the peasantry to abdicate their rights or to lose their rights on the land or their labor. So that is peasant struggles. And come to the political form of struggles. In Indian history, we have different struggles. Indian independence movement, we call it as the struggle for independence, is a very prolonged struggle starting from 1860s. You have various phases, very cool phases, not so intense phases, and finally coming into 1900s, you have different bigger phase of Indian independence struggle till 1947. So, in terms of polity, Indian independence struggle is a longer waged struggle in Indian history. And next to this Indian independence struggle, you have another struggle, another movement, which we call as Naxalite movement. Naxalite movement, in government parlance, we call it as revolutionary extremism or red extremism. So all these things, Naxalites call themselves as revolutionaries. So left-wing extremism is another term, popular term, left-wing extremism. It has ideology. What ideology it has? That is left ideology, that is Marxism. We will talk about it in detail. But before that, this Naxalite movement is very important in the history, Indian history particularly, because it is 5-decade-old movement in India. Even today, you have the Naxalite movement in different parts of the country. And Naxalite movement was having its beginnings in Telangana too. Before Naxalite movement, we had a great struggle in Telangana itself, Telangana armed struggle waged by CPI against Nizam and feudalism. So, Telangana is not new for all these struggles. Why we are studying Naxalite movement in Telangana history? Because we are talking about the period, you can see from 1947 onwards, we are talking till the formation of Telangana state, 2014. Post 1947 developments and 2014, you have Naxalite movement very much entrenched in the society of Telangana. You have lot of events, happenings, people associated with it, and Telangana was completely having a bigger phase of Naxalite movement more than any other place in this country. That is the importance we are having. In the country, ours is the only state which held talks with the Naxalites to address the issues raised by the Naxalites. And to not the least, but to conclude about the importance, I would like to say all the ruling classes, all the political parties, whoever is going to the rural side of Telangana were talking about the Naxalism and saying that there won't be repression on the movement, or they are saying that the agenda of Naxalites is correct, but the path is wrong. N.T. Ramarao, who went to Telangana before getting elected, he said Naxalites are the only patriots. Are the only patriots, he was saying. So you can see whether many people like it or not, whether their path is constitutional or unconstitutional, Naxalism is there in the political agenda of India and Telangana too. That is why we are studying about the Naxalite movement in Telangana. Telangana, again going back to the roots, going back to the pre-1940s, Nizam state, a feudal state. In the feudal state, you have the landlords' suppression. Landlords are suppressing the peasantry in the countryside. Landlords are exploiting the peasantry, the entire society. In many ways, though they are having unconstitutional, they are not the kings, but they are in the second rung in the pyramid of the king. After Nizam, you have this landlord section. These people were exploiting the entire society, and Telangana could not overcome the exploitation unless and until there was a great struggle which is known as Telangana armed struggle. Telangana armed struggle happened between 1946 and 51, was the pioneer in the armed struggles in the country. Though apart from Telangana, there were struggles in 𝗵𝗂𝗃 in Bengal, Punapravailar in Kerala. Those two struggles are not up to the level in which like Telangana armed struggle. So in this background, we are discussing the Naxalite movement. So, rise and spread of Naxalite movement and the beginnings. So in this, we will be talking about the conditions at the country level, that is national and international conditions, Naxalbari uprising and Indian context. Why the Naxalbari movement has to come in on Indian soil? Naxalbari comes to Telangana. From Naxalbari, a remote place in some other part of the country, we will be talking about it. Then anti-landlord struggles in Jagityala, Sirsilla, North Telangana. Mass organizations, Raitu Kuli Sangams, all these things were part and parcel of the Telangana society. So we will be talking about all these issues in this movement. Before going to that, I would like to make a political comment. For example, Naxalbari is a small village. But this Naxalbari and a struggle started in Naxalbari is not the beginning itself. There should be conditions for the rise of such movements on the soil, on the Indian soil. So what were the conditions? National conditions are the conditions present at that time. This is, we are talking of 60s of Indian context. 60s are known as simmering 60s, means udukutunna, kutakutaladutunna 60s. In 60s, there were many issues, burning issues, which were bothering the country, bothering India. Like, you had a great food crisis. Food grains, we did not have much. So that is why you can see, because of this food crisis, we had two things coming in the way. One is green revolution in the next phase. Second one is getting food grains from America or some other country to overcome such things. This is number one, food crisis, very big crisis in Indian history. Then, non-implementation of land reforms. This is 1960s. India got independence in 1947. Though we made tall promises, though there are many legislations about the rights of the tenants, about the rights of the workers, about the rights of the peasantry, land sealing acts and all those things. Actually, land sealing acts is not much relevant at this point of time, but still, the feudalism is much stronger even after 2 decades of Indian independence. What was happening? Land is concentrated in some hands, and majority of the people are working on the lands owned by a few. So automatically, the people who are in the hands of those who are exploited in the hands of a few will revolt against it. So the question of land reforms is another important aspect. Next, unabated feudal oppression. Feudal oppression is not just economic, remember. In feudalism, for example, the landlord will be exploiting the peasant for want of his labor. Number one, The labor will be working in the fields. But apart from that, the entire family of the labor, agriculture labor or the bonded labor will be working in the house of the Dora or the landlord. Dora is a context we are talking because in Telangana, these landlords are called as Doras. So, Doras are landlords. These people were exploiting. In other sense too, this is known as extra economic coercion. Remember this word should be used at an appropriate place. Economic exploitation is one thing, extra economic coercion is another thing. This is another aspect of feudalism, extra economic coercion. Use this word in your examination. This extra economic coercion will be done in many ways. It can be expressed through bonded labor working other than your agricultural activities and caste oppression, or the entire village is subjugated to landlord. So all these things are coming in feudalism. Next, unemployment. Severe unemployment was there in the country. In spite of having 5-year plans, we were unable to provide employment for the newly educated. This country was growing younger and younger every day, and educated should get employment. And if you don't get employment, the crisis will snowball into the society and that unrest will lead to some other movement. That is why this unemployment is another important reason of this period. Next, political crisis inside Congress. 1960s in our country till 1975, after emergency, there was no bigger threat to Congress. Congress was monopolizing the politics of this country. So, Congress was the only party which was having its say in Indian politics. Inside Congress, after Nehru, Indira Gandhi came. The old guards are the people who were there in Congress, the seniors, versus Indira Gandhi. And that crisis was boiling, that crisis was brewing inside the Congress at this point of time. So, internal crisis in Congress is another symptom of this period. Last one, but not the least one. Debate among the communists in Indian Revolution. This is the most important aspect because whenever we talk about any aspect, philosophically we have to analyze two things. For change, there are two conditions. One is external, second is internal. Among these external and internal conditions, which is important? What is important? Which one is important? Internal condition is important. Unless and until there are internal conditions favorable for the change, external conditions cannot impose upon. So, internal condition, who has to wage a revolutionary struggle? The people who has to fight for it. The revolutionary party or a communist party or a political party which is talking of a change, which is talking about change. So, revolutionary party or communist party should have the debate inside, how to proceed with the revolution. And it was there at this point of time. So, this is another important aspect of this period. So, these are the conditions at national level. Then come to the international conditions. International conditions were also severely ripe, and after Second World War, again in 60s, there was some situation, there was a serious unrest in Europe too, and France expressed it a lot. In France, there was a big French student protest that inspired the students of India too. The students of France were questioning the authorities, questioning the method they were being taught, questioning the society which is stagnant. They were very radical in their slogans. University of Sorbonne or Nantes, all these universities echoed the slogans of French students' protest. This is happening in 1960s, late 1960s. So, this is the society, this is the situation in France, one example. Then, anti-imperialist sentiment, anti-imperialist feelings or struggles in the world. What anti-imperialist? It is against the American imperialism. Vietnam was attacked by America, and many people all over the world were protesting against the American intervention in Vietnam. American war on Vietnam. Vietnam is a small country, but America could not win. It retreated shamelessly, but it never accepted that I lost this battle. That is why Vietnam inspired many people in this period against the imperialism. So Vietnam became a symbol. That is why in Naxalite movement in 1970s, in Bengal, it was a slogan that Mera Naam, Tera Naam, Vietnam, Vietnam. You see, Vietnam becoming a symbol of anti-imperialist struggle. This is another international condition. Then cultural revolution of Mao has questioned the basic structures of the Communist Party itself. Mao said, bombard the headquarters. Mao said, you should question everything. You should question anything which is old. You can question anything which is redundant. You can question anything which is not useful for society. So all these things have come into the minds of the people, and cultural revolution and Chinese revolution both inspired the communists in India. So behind this background, this was the background for Naxalbari movement. And our Naxalbari movement is starting in one remote corner of the country. If you remember the map of India, when you enter into northeast, there is a small strip. It is like chicken neck. So that chicken's neck, at that chicken's neck, you have a place known as Siliguri district. In Siliguri district, near Siliguri, Darjeeling and Siliguri, these are the areas in and around that area. In that remote corner, you have a village which is known as Naxalbari. There our story begins. The Naxalite movement started in Naxalbari in 1967. 66, 67, these are the years, beginning years. For the next movement, which will be a bigger movement in the country, the beginnings happened in this village, Naxalbari. 𝗳 𝗦𝗔𝗧 was the leader. 𝗳 𝗦𝗔𝗧 originally a district committee member of CPM, but he was different. He was contesting the methods of CPM. He was for revolution. He wanted to change the landscape of rural areas against feudalism. So this man, 𝗳 𝗦𝗔𝗧, wrote 8 documents. Documents means 8 essays on Indian condition. Present task is first document. What should we do to change the political situation is number 1. Then how to proceed with the revolution. What are the conditions? Who are the enemies? Who are the friends in the Indian society? All these things he was writing in all these 8 documents. Against revisionism means he was aiming at CPM or CPI, which promised revolution but did not work for revolution. So he was aiming at revisionism and he was trying to build a revolutionary party. All these things were written in these 8 documents. In your examination, they may ask 8 documents, author 𝗳 𝗦𝗔𝗧. Remember, this is the basic document for CPI-ML or Naxalite movement. Then another important aspect is he was inspired by the Chinese model of revolution. In China, unlike in Russia it was a insurgency. It was insurrection, means you will raise against the state all of a sudden, and for 10 days or 15 days you will be waging the battle and win the power. But in China, it was a protracted one. It took many years, starting from 1925 to 1949, 24 years of long struggle, winning over smaller areas and encircling the towns and winning bigger areas, making guerrilla zones, and finally capturing the political power in the entire country. This was a model devised by Mao. This is known as protracted people's war. Another important principle he was talking about was new democratic revolution. In the countries where the bourgeoisie, like in Napoleon or in France, when bourgeoisie has overthrown feudalism, they came as new democratic people. But in countries like China or any other backward countries, bourgeoisie, means the middle class or the industrial class, did not rise because of colonial powers coming and sitting on the country itself. It was a colonial country. So you don't have the rise of bourgeoisie. There, the Communist Party itself has to bring revolution. The revolution which has to be brought by capitalists has to be brought by communists. So this is known as new democratic revolution. So this new democratic revolution and protracted people's war means it will take many years to continue revolution and capture the power. This was the policy. This was the method of China known as Chinese model. So 𝗳 𝗦𝗔𝗧 was propagating the Chinese model. He was convinced with this Chinese model and he feels that in India, Chinese model is the one which will work for the revolution. So now 𝗳 𝗦𝗔𝗧 along with 3 other people, Kanu Sanyal, Jengal Santhal. Kanu Sanyal is also a communist leader, CPM leader, and Jengal Santhal local party leader at that area, that is Naxalbari, that Siliguri district. So between March 67 and April, means these periods, they were intensely working among the peasantry. They made already the work, they were doing the work in the villages among the peasantry, Santhal tribals, mostly Santhal tribals, very backward area. And the land was in the hands of jotedars. People are the Santhal tribals who were being exploited by the jotedars, the landlords. So Naxalbari, Kharibadi, Phansi-Deva, these three villages were the main centers of the beginning of this activity. So between March and April 1967, almost 275 square miles of area was completely under the land struggles. The people were snatching away the land documents from the landlords and burning it so that they can get liberated. The same thing has happened in Telangana armed struggle too. When the Telangana armed struggle was waging battle against feudalism in Telangana, they also seized the promissory notes, mortgage papers, land documents and burnt it. Bonfire, in the bonfire they celebrated their liberation, like that. So the land occupation happened in 60 places, led by the committees made by these leaders, known as peasant committees. Krishak Committee. Krishak Committee was the name. So this Krishak Committee were organizing the peasantry and getting liberated from the yoke of the feudalism. This is happening in just a small area near Naxalbari. But what is happening in the nearby period, the peasantry were organized under Krishak committees and the land was being occupied. Then will the state keep quiet if the land is being occupied without the consent of the revenue department of state? No. First police came. On May 23rd, a police came, known as, his name was Sonam Wangdi, and Sonam Wangdi was attacking the villagers and villagers repulsed it. In that, Sonam Wangdi died. Again on May 25th, what happened? Police came in a large number and fired upon the villagers. In this, 7 women and 3 children died. 7 women and 3 children died in the melee, in the firing, in the police firing, and as a result, the first martyrs of Naxalbari struggle were none other than women of that village and children. Not even the communist leaders or the people. Actually, people were targeted by the police to terrorize the peasantry. So, if we go to Naxalbari region, we can see the martyrs memorial of these 7 women and 2 children. These were poor peasantry not having lands. So, they were killed by the police of West Bengal. Very interestingly, it was a coalition ministry of Bangla Congress and CPM. Hare Krishna Konar was the revenue minister from CPM, and Jyoti Basu was also there in the ministry. And Congress led by Ajay Ghosh was Bangla Congress. So CM, Bangla Congress, and it's a coalition ministry of CPM. And who is fighting against it? A CPM leader of the district. So this was the equation happening. So this movement, the firing and killing of the people, was a big blow to the local movement. Then Charu Mazumdar said, now the liberation war has begun, because we have to spread this movement, raise the level of resistance, and now the movement has spread to different areas of the state, in the rural areas. Not only rural areas, within no time it spread to many areas of the country. For example, you can take Srikakulam in AP. Srikakulam is far away from Bengal, but in Srikakulam, CPM cadres, district leaders rose against feudalism, rose against the non-tribals in the forest areas, rose against forest department officials and moneylenders. And tribals were given support. And in Srikakulam, the Naxalite movement has taken up. Naxalbari movement started in Naxalbari, then spreading into Srikakulam. Since it has come from Naxalbari, everywhere it is being called as Naxalite movement. And next, this is Srikakulam. Apart from Srikakulam in Andhra Pradesh, Mushahari in Bihar, Birbhum in West Bengal, Lakhimpur Kheri in Uttar Pradesh. Lakhimpur Kheri is in the Tarai region of Uttar Pradesh, means Himalayan foothills, forest area, tribal, semi-rural, and feudalism is so deeply entrenched. So Lakhimpur Kheri in UP, then Wayanad in Kerala, and Firozpur in Punjab. You can see different types of landscapes. Tribal areas, rural areas and Punjab-like places. So all these areas were under fire. So Naxalbari movement spread to all these areas. That is why one poet said, Naxalbari is not a name of a village. Now it is the name of the country. So communist movement has again, communist movement means communist movement is movement. You have different communist parties. The communist party now waging is not a party. It is a small group of people came out of CPM or resisting the CPM, and these people started this movement. Let's take some small information about the communist movement. That is, CPI started in Tashkent in 1920, but it did not function as a communist party. But in 1925, it started its work in India. And CPI then took part in many struggles, as I said, working class movement, peasant movement, and it raised Telangana armed struggle. That is a very important achievement of CPI in Indian history. But in 1964, CPI split into CPI, CPM. The main contradiction inside the CPI was, there were two discussions. One is whether India is right or wrong in the Indo-China war. Some people who supported the Chinese stance came into CPM. Those who supported India's stand settled in CPI. So this is one international thing. But the main important thing is, inside the CPI also there is a debate how to continue the revolution, how to capture the political power. Any communist party has an aim to capture political power, to establish a proletarian state. So you have communism in your party's name. So definitely always you will be having the debate inside the party. This debate also led to the division in CPI. So communist movement having this debate inside, but daring all these debates, Charu Mazumdar has started his movement in Srikakulam. He started his movement in Naxalbari. Then it spread to all over the country. So what is happening in this meantime? Supporters of Naxalbari struggle inside CPM, inside CPI, and outside these two parties, those who are independent, not part of communist movement, but inspired by the peasant struggles, revolutionary peasant struggles, were getting polarized under Naxalbari banner. So first they have started All India Coordination Committee of Revolutionaries. Then they changed the name to All India Coordination Committee for Communist Revolutionaries, to take some more people who are in revolutionary parties or communist parties. They have changed the name. So first 𝗂𝗍𝗂𝗧, then they started 𝗂𝗍𝗂𝗧, All India Coordination Committee for Communist Revolutionaries. Then finally, on 22nd April 1969, a new party was formed in Indian politics, that is known as CPIML. In communist parties, if you see, first one is CPI, then came CPM or CPI in brackets M, means CPI Marxist. Now this is CPIML, Marxist Leninist. So what is the difference between Marxist Leninist? We'll be discussing. Because the people who are starting this CPIML were under the influence of Naxalbari movement, were led by Charu Mazumdar and Saroj Datta, Sushil Rai Chaudhary, like many stalwarts who were in CPM. They were leaders, already established leaders in CPM. Saroj Datta was a great poet in Bengal, and he came out of CPM and supported Naxalbari. Many film actors like 𝗵𝗏, a character actor of Bengal of those times, came out of CPM for some time. He was with Naxalbari struggle. Like that, these people were... మరి చెప్పరు, మీరు లాస్ట్ 2 minutes చెప్పాలా? కాదు చెప్తా. So their understanding was Marxism, Leninism and Mao thought. Now as I said, Chinese model was the model they are talking about. So this is the background of Naxalbari, organizationally and politically, ideologically.